but welcome. I want to share a quick story. When I was young, I think I was in elementary school at the time, and there was I'm from Detroit, originally outside Detroit, and there was a family, there was a shaliach who was in for a couple of years living in Detroit that we became friends with, him and their family. And he was originally from Yemen. His family was from Yemen. He was, at the time, I think, under a year old when his family left. In fact, a fascinating story that he shared. Yeah, Jewish, Yemenite. They had made Aliyah. He was an infant when his parents moved, but he said his parents lived in one of the towns in the mountains in Yemen. And there were Mossad agents that came in, I think it was 1948, 1949, to scout out, to find the Jewish communities. And they dressed in Arab guise that the Yemenite government, the Yemenites wouldn't know who these people were. And when they eventually kind of came forward that they're Jews and they came to the community didn't believe them because they thought they were the last Jews left on earth. They were so disconnected from the rest of world Jewry that they thought they were the last Jews left in the world. And eventually, right, they were convinced. And as you probably know, they were brought in a clandestine operation, the airplanes that they took out all the seats to fit everyone in and brought them to the land of Israel. And he said for his parents who had never seen an airplane before, this really was al kanfei nesharim, that they believed these were the eagles that were bringing them back to Zion. And he shared that.
My mom was the same. Right. I came from Iraq with the same.
So the same idea. And he was young, and he shared both the positive and also the challenges growing up with Yemenite parents that really didn't understand. And he shared when he was like in elementary school, middle school, going to school and secretly cutting off his payas, because that just wasn't. It was what his parents have grown up with, but he was in a very different type of community. They still live. His family still lives in basically a Temani Moshav. All of his relatives, Ozeri, which is a common Yemenite name, but they live on Moshav Givat Yarim, which is is near Kiryat Yearim. It's kind of midway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem off Kvish Echad. But there's basically 150, 175 families that are all Yemenite and all from the same, they're all related. They're all for a second cousins, third cousins.
Oh, wow.
With one another. But yeah, Taibo?
There's a photographer who has two Haggadot whose last name is Ozeri.
Interesting. There might be a relation, but my understanding is Ozeri is kind of like Smith from the Yemenite community. So there might be a relation.
His first name might even be Zion. I'll look for I own one of them. I'll send it to you. All
right. Good. Well, the whole point, that was an aside, but we went to their home for Rosh Hashanah, and they had on their table the head of a fish, right? And we had never seen, my family growing up in America, Ashkenazi Jews, no one in my family had ever seen that. And my dad in particular thought this was fascinating. And they shared a little about the fish head and the eye, like looking at us, right? And my dad was determined that the next year when we hosted Rosh Hashanah, we would have a fish head at our table. So we went about a few weeks before Rosh Hashanah. We went to they had like a kosher market. We asked for a fish head, and we went back to get it, and it's filleted. So you don't actually see the fish head. And so he went, he said, no, we need to actually see the whole fish, the fish head. And eventually we get the fish head, we put it on the table. And my aunt comes in, she sees the fish, the eye staring at her. She runs out of the room. She says, there's no way I'm eating at this table if that fish head is on the table. So that was the end of our fish head on our Rosh Hashanah table. But
yeah, we didn't like it either. We did. We had it.
You did it, but you didn't like it. So my aunt said it's either the fish head or me, and that was the end. That was the end of the fish head. So first of all, does anyone? You said you have a fish head on your table. Are you used to?
Yeah.
Do you know why?
So we'll be for a head and not a tail.
So we'll be like the head and not the tail. Yeah, Ruth.
It looks like on Tybal's picture, there is a head of a fish.
Yes, Tybal. Yes, Tybal, you want to share? And then Helena, yeah.
I I teach some adults, and I think it was 2 years ago in the pandemic, it's all on Zoom. I did this whole custom. I did it more about propitious foods that you eat for good luck from all sorts of different ethnicities and diaspora and what the customs are than necessarily the Seder itself. And this is I'm with your aunt. I don't really like this image as much as the other image because of the fish head, but this is one of the images I used. And we also then, I guess you could do this with kids. I did it with 70-year-olds. We picked foods that because of the names, we could write wishes for each other for.
Very nice.
The easiest one, like peas. May you have a peaceful next year full of peas, that kind of a thing.
Good. So maybe at the end, we'll see if we can come up with any, as you said, propitious signs, right? The idea of the fish head, for those who are familiar or who have it, right, is that the fish head is there that we might be like the head of the year and not the tail. Yeah, Halina.
Yeah. So I'm not Yemenite, I'm not from Iraq. And we definitely had fish head. And my mother, every Rosh Hashanah, said, you don't have to fight over the head of the fish. I have a head for each one of us.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It was from small carps, and definitely she used to buy at least 4 fish. And we had them, she bought them alive a few days before the Rosh Hashanah, and she put them in the ambatya, in the
tub.
Yeah, the bathtub. Yeah, in the bathtub.
Yeah,
And it was like we used to play with them as kids, and then the next morning my mother would make them, put on the head, with the knife, and she cooked them, and it was a delicacy, guys.
Yes.
It's what you are used to,
I
There
have
is
the
a-
same thing in my house.
All about what you're used to. Yeah, Ruth. Yeah.
There is a story for kids, a carp in the tub.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
in English.
Yes,
Good.
the writer's
Yeah,
name is
look at for him.
I
Uchil.
will.
I'm blocking on her first name because I know her sister, but somebody, or maybe it's her maiden name is Uchil, Uchill. It's really a cute kid's book, Ruth.
We'll need to read it to our kids for Rosh Hashanah this year.
Yeah. We have a
Maybe it's in our children's library. I'll need to take a look. I have not come across it yet, but it could be. But good. So I want to share, before I have a number of sources, and I'll put them up on the screen. But right, the fish head is essentially a Jewish version of a good luck charm, right? That a good omen, a good sign. And I wanted to hear, if anyone, oh good, we have more joining us in person. So thank you. But before we get started with the sources, so you don't need to look at that yet. Can anyone think of a good luck charm, a good omen, a good sign, anything that you do personally or with your family? It could be something Jewish. It could just be a general good luck omen or sign.
so many, like wearing a red bracelet on your hand, like a lot of people wear.
Right, wearing the red bracelet,
Right.
yeah.
Like a string or whatever, that's for good. And Hamsa, fine.
The chamsa, good, yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Any other good luck charms or signs?
Salt over your shoulder.
Pouring salt over your shoulder, yeah. I don't know if you do that, but
But Italian, I think, do it. You said anybody, not only me.
yeah, no, anyone, right? Do you have any personal things that you do? I have personal like numbers, like when I see it's a certain number. In fact, when I was young, I decided 13. Since 13 was seen as an unlucky number, I would take that and make it my lucky number. So when I see 13, I think of it as a lucky number for me.
Me too. But
Good.
yeah. There are all kind of things that they used to think, like if somebody gave you a compliment, my mother would, when I was a child, or gave her granddaughter a compliment, how pretty she is. She used to say in Yiddish, "Lecter of the Teufel." So she would it's definitely, איך אומרים? משהו שלא...
Superstition?
Superstition, yeah, definitely a superstitious thing, you know? So
Yes, no, right.
yeah.
Yeah, my mother used to say Salz in the Eugen and pepper in the nose. Salt
Right.
in your eyes and pepper in your nose.
So there's another thing,
Right.
I don't do it, but I know a lot of people in Israel do. If somebody give you a knife, let's say hand me the knife, they don't hand it to you. They put it and you have to take it from the
Okay, did everyone hear that?
The Russians are doing that.
You can't.
You can't take a knife from someone. You need to put it, it's bad luck to grab a knife that you,
Yeah.
right. Good. So I'm going to share here because, and many of us know it, you know, especially in Yiddish maybe, but throughout Jewish history, superstition has played a large role. We see it actually a lot even in ancient Jewish tradition in the Talmud.
That's what I'm thinking, I'm remembering.
But I'm going to start here. And maybe Bonnie, do you want to read this first? These are two quotes here in the Torah from Leviticus and then in Deuteronomy. Do you want to read in English here? Leviticus 19:26? Yeah. Well, don't worry. We'll do it all in English. I know the Hebrew's there for
Shall
this.
not eat anything that's blood.
And really, the second sentence is what we want to look at.
Shall not practice divination or soothsaying.
Good. So you shall not practice divination or soothsaying. So what is divination?
Tell us. I never heard that word.
Tenachashu. And you might recognize the Hebrew for those who are Israeli. Tenachashu is lenachesh. What does it mean, lenachesh? To guess. So divination. Any thoughts, Tybal? Yeah.
Is this what was done with the Witch of Endor, which shouldn't have been?
Maybe you could share more, but possibly.
Because there was this whole thing, you're not supposed to, I forget the wording. And both Ruth and Helena are on, I don't know other people's Hebrew, as much as I know Ruth and Helena's great Hebrew, but there were words that the king there have been instructions not to do this, but the king had the Witch of Endor raised from the dead to ask about the future. So that's divination when but different kinds of divination. I don't think this was Jewish, but they used to look at animal entrails and the shapes. And I don't think this was Jewish, but Jews did it, like tea leaves, teacup dregs.
Right. No, Tybal's correct. Right. In many traditions, there were different ways of trying to foretell the future, try to provide good omens. The Torah seems to be telling us that's not something we want to do. Divination, tenachashu, is like guesswork, is like predicting what's going to be. You shouldn't try to be like the divine. You shouldn't try to be all-knowing like God. Soothsaying is kind of the same idea, that the Torah is actually explicitly giving us a command that we shouldn't be trying to project the future, predict the future, or trying to impact upon the future through mystical means, let's say.
Like a fortune teller.
Like a fortune teller, right.
A palm reader or something.
Right, like a palm reader. And here I'll just read Deuteronomy, kind of repeats this same exact idea. Let no one be found among you who consigns a son or daughter to the fire, or who is an augur, a soothsayer, a diviner, or a sorcerer. In some ways, for Israelis, it might be clearer in the Hebrew here. Kosem, ksamim, which is magic. Me'onenu menacheshu mechashef. No one who performs witchcraft or magic or guesswork, essentially. The Torah seems to be forbidding anything that might be trying to provide good omen or bring into the world through mystical means, through magical means, your desires. Yeah, Bonnie.
I'm kind of confused. What about prophets, though? Prophets kind of...
So it's a good question. What about prophets, and how do prophets fit in here? According to Jewish tradition, prophet is someone who talks with God and is bringing God's word. They're not bringing their own word.
Oh, okay.
The soothsaying or divination, the difference here is that the Torah is talking about, at least this is how it's understood through tradition, is someone who through their own means is trying to bring about change in a mystical way. Or foretelling, kind of looking at the tea leaves, so to speak, rather than hearing from God directly. But here we move on, and I don't know, is there someone maybe on Zoom that wants to read this first paragraph? We're now jumped to the Talmud. Here we were around the year, say 300, 400 of the Common Era, something around there. It's hard to give an exact date on the Torah because there's different understandings of how the Torah came to be. But certainly the sages who wrote the Talmud are very familiar with what the Torah says, and they're interpreting the Torah. So I don't know, is anyone, Helena, do you want to read here? Where it says Horayot 12a, the sages taught.
Hebrew or in English?
In English, if you're able, yeah, because not everyone is.
The sages taught one anoints the kings only upon a spring as an omen so that their kingdom will continue like a spring, as it is stated with regard to the coronation of Solomon before the death of David. And the king said unto them, take with you the servants of your Lord, and let Solomon my son ride upon my own mule, and bring him down to Gihon spring.
Okay, so stop there for a second. The sages are teaching this story. They're actually coming from the book of Kings in the Bible, that a king should only be anointed upon a spring, and it's an omen, and it's a sign. They should do it so that their kingdom will continue like a spring, and they pull a verse from scripture to understand that. So how is this like or differ from what we just read you're not supposed to do? Any thoughts? We just heard you're not supposed to do divination. You're not supposed to present.
But they're not changing, they're just trying for good luck. It's like you say, the mezuzah is protecting us from bad thing in our home, so maybe we should put them, I know it says in the Torah to say it, but so we believe that it's kind of shielding our homes.
Okay, so maybe it's not exactly divination. Maybe we're not guessing the future. We're kind of providing a sign like this is what we want to be like. Okay. Now
Nature.
it's from nature. So this example may be easy to say is different. The next section right after this, Rabbi Ami said, this person or the person who seeks to know if he will complete his year or if he will not, i.e. whether he will remain alive in the coming year, let him light a lamp during the 10 days that are between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in a house in which wind does not blow. If its light continues to burn, he knows that he will complete his year.
Now that's.
Zahava has a problem now with the second. What Rabbi Ami is saying seems to go directly against the Torah.
Well, it's like here, you say, it's gonna happen, just do it. Like,
Just do it.
the kids wear the pajamas inside out, it's gonna have a snow day. It's the same.
Right, this is how we're gonna see. So Tybal talked about the tea leaves, which aren't Jewish tradition, but this kind of seems a lot like reading the tea leaves or palm reading. If the light continues to stay on, you'll live through the year, right? Any thoughts on, is this okay according to the Torah, or is this problematic?
It's problematic.
Tybal, yeah. Oh, Tybal and then Helena, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be problematic, but the way in which possibly it could be saved is that, and I need vowels for my Hebrew, sorry, but if the light of the lamp is likened to the light that's one's neshama, one's soul, that there's a stronger metaphoric connection than the other kinds of divination.
Very homiletical, a good sermon. I see.
These are a man.
But good, yeah, a lot of the Hebrew, it's actually Aramaic,
Right.
mostly actually in this. But yeah, any other thoughts?
I think it's pasul, can do it.
Zahava, it's pasul. Okay, it's not allowed. And we'll go on. I'm not going to read.
She said, but we read it.
Right.
It seems like that shouldn't be.
So, right, I'm going to kind of skim here because this is the continued in English. It was all in Aramaic before, but similar ideas. The Talmud goes on. And one who seeks to conduct a business venture and wishes to know if he will succeed or not succeed, let him raise a rooster. If the rooster grows fat and healthy, he will succeed. One who seeks to embark on a journey and wishes to know if he will return and come to his home or not, let him go to a dark house. And if he sees the shadow of a shadow, he will know that he will return and come home. So a lot of superstition, let's say, right?
It's like
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so Helena, right. So our Yiddish proverbs and our our Eastern European ancestors got it, and they were in good company, right? They were building on good sources here in the Talmud. But the reason I brought this in is this last paragraph, Abaye, who is one of the leading rabbis in the Talmud. Now that you said that an omen is a significant matter, and they say all of these things that the Talmud, these people are bringing up as omens, and a significant meaning, it's allowed, it's acceptable. Then a person should always be accustomed to seeing these things on Rosh Hashanah. This comes back to the Talmud. We're talking about 1,500, 1,600 years ago already. Abaye says, these are things you should always see on Rosh Hashanah: a squash, fenugreek, which we'll look at it in Hebrew, rubia, leeks, chard, and dates, as each of these grows quickly and serves as a positive omen for one's actions during the coming year.
Fenugreek is also chilbe. The Yemenite call it chilbe.
Oh, chilbe, okay. So we'll look at that, and that's good because there's some different understandings and interpretations on what these things are.
So wait a minute, you're supposed to see these things?
So you're supposed to see these things, yeah.
Meaning you buy them, bring it in front of your table.
You put them in front of you so you see them.
In nature looking,
I just
buy
thought
it.
they show up.
They just show that you see them, and they're a positive omen because these are all items that grow quickly. That such should our merits grow quickly in the coming year. Tybal, yeah.
For people who like accoutrement, as I call them, what my virtual background is now, it's this beautiful Rosh Hashanah. I don't own it. I found it as something one can buy in a Judaica store. But in addition to just plates and things, this is a beautiful thing. I think this one's like a Tree of Life one, where you put the different foods, many of which you just mentioned, in the little containers. But a fish head would make it ugly.
A fish head might not fit in there, but right, just like we have a Seder plate on Pesach, right? There are Seder plates that exist like this, right, for Rosh Hashanah. And we're going to jump forward. Oh, Helena, yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of cultures, Jewish cultures, I mean, the Persians, the Iraqi, the Yemenite, not so much the Ashkenazi Jews. They had only a few things like an apple with honey, the head of the date, the head of a fish. But they had a whole, like a Seder plate for Rosh Hashanah. And they used to put beads. There is a bunch of things that they used to put on it.
Yes.
You will get to it.
Rimon, selek, and everything had a meaning. I have to find it. I have it.
Right, well, we'll see it, Helena. Yeah, we're going to see it. We're going to see it here in a few minutes. But very good, right? This is all right, ways to infuse, and I know we all grew up with different traditions, but these are all right, ways that we're going to see, ways that you can infuse meaning into your Rosh Hashanah and into particularly your Rosh Hashanah meals. But we see already 1,500 years ago in the Talmud, there was already this sense that there were good omens that were acceptable and were seen as propitious, that we should put on the table to look at. Here, Abaye is actually not talking about eating them. He's actually talking about looking at them. Later, we'll see that it comes to also be about eating them as well. But there still is some concern about doing something that is questionable according to the Torah. And we see this as a leading rabbi in the 11th and 12th century here in France, Rav Menachem Meiri. And I'll just read here, this is an English translation, but he explains the custom. In order to arouse themselves to focus on God and to place the awe of him in their consciousness without sinning, they developed the practice of placing gourd, fenugreek, leek, cabbage, and dates on the table. This was done corresponding to that which was cited in Tractate Horayot and Kritot, which is in the Talmud. Now that you have determined that omens are significant, at the beginning of every year, every person should ... look at these things. And what does he write? So he's explaining what the custom now is in France, in his home. This is what people do. But he says, and in order to not mistake this practice for sorcery, God forbid, they would pronounce upon these things words that highlighted forgiveness and awakened feelings of repentance. So now it's no longer about looking at the thing and the thing provides a good omen. It's about using the names of the items as symbols of what we need to do, of what we want God to do and what we need to do to bring about the change. So it's not a mystical kind of trying to change nature. It's what we can do, how we can affect change in our own lives. When they said that an omen is significant, they meant that it could affect a person just by him being aware of the omens placed before him. So it's not an omen of what's going to happen. It's an omen for us, how we need to act in the world to affect change. Right, even without explicitly reciting prayers over them. That is why at first they would simply look at them during the meal. However, because the sages were concerned that people might become preoccupied with satisfying their appetites and become distracted from focusing on the spiritual importance of the day and the awe of judgment, therefore they began to recite special prayers over these foods in order to raise people's consciousness. They began to say on the board that our merits should be mentioned, and on, all the different items. There were things that we'll look at in just a minute, but for each item on the Rosh Hashanah table that's supposed to be a good omen, we would suddenly have blessings. So already in the 12th century, we know that there were already blessings upon these omens that we would have put on our Rosh Hashanah table. The meaning behind the cutting off of our enemies, which is some of the foods talk about, or the blessing talks about, it refers, he says, to foreign ideologies and heresies that cause people to transgress, for those are the enemies that cause the purest form of hatred. He wants to be clear that we're not praying for the downfall of our enemies, because that would be seen almost like an omen, like almost going against the Torah. We have enough to pray for on our own account, he says, right?
So they shouldn't fail, but we should be stronger than them, and we'll be able to.
Right, we should be stronger than them. So I'm going to pause for a second before we kind of look at, before we look at what some of the items are, and I'm going to pull, I'm going to jump to an Ashkenazi machzor and a Sephardi machzor in a minute. I want to hear, and Helena, you mentioned some. Can anyone name some foods that you've heard about or that you practice that you may use at your Seder that you think of as these are Rosh Hashanah foods?
There's so many. I have to think about it. Well, we talk about the lubia.
So the lubia, right, which is the ruby. This is the fenugreek, which could be translated in a few different ways, right?
Fenugreek, I thought it was a spice. Like I know the Yemenite it's chilbe. It's a chilbe, the fenugreek.
Maybe it's chilba, but I know it's also black-eyed peas in certain parts of the Sephardi world. Carrots.
We won't have bet gzerot.
Right. So carrots, gezer is the same word as gzar, which is a decree. They're related words. Yeah, Ruth.
Sliced carrots. So you'll have a lot of money. You cut it like coins. So you'll have
interesting. Okay.
I never heard of that.
You cut the carrots like coins to be like having wealth. Yeah, Tybal?
So pomegranate, in part because out of the 7 species, it fits with when it's in the harvest. And it's also, if it's okay, just one short thing. I am a geriatric parent of an only child, and we did an upsherin for him to get me, the parent, and he, the child, ready to have his haircut. And we're not Hasidic, but when I talked to Hasidic rabbis, I said, no matter what, don't do a blessing. It's a custom, don't do a blessing. But I wanted to do a blessing. So what we did is we walked around as a family, the 3 of us, with a plate of pomegranate seeds. So people could say a Shehechianu, because it was probably, I should have said he was born in Sukkot. I apologize. He was born during Sukkot. So people, if they hadn't had pomegranates yet this season, could eat the seeds and say a Shehechianu. Anyway, so pomegranates, and it's because there's this folk idea that it has 613 seeds, like the 613 mitzvot.
Yeah. Oh, pruvu.
Right, pruvu, good.
Okay,
You should, right, that you should be fruitful and multiply, good. And I'll mention now, and this is kind of a little separate, but around Rosh Hashanah, there is a debate in the Talmud about whether Rosh Hashanah should be 1 day or 2 days. And actually the Talmud talks about Rosh Hashanah as a Yoma Arichta, the one very long day. As you may know, in the Torah, most Chagim holidays are one day. Here in the diaspora, we often celebrate 2 days of holidays. But in Israel, right, there's one day of the beginning of Sukkot. There's one day that's Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is celebrated together with it. There's one Seder, one beginning of Pesach, one day at the end, one day of Shavuot. But on Rosh Hashanah, there's 2 days. It's the one holiday in Israel and everywhere in the world that's 2 days. And it's because the Talmud has this debate and talks about it as really one long day. And then they bring up another question. If it's really supposed to just be one long day, do you say the Shehecheyanu, the prayer for something new, do you say it on the second night of Rosh Hashanah? Because if it's really just one long day, it's really just a continuation. And there's no need, you shouldn't be wasting a blessing by saying Shehecheyanu on the second day. And because there's a worry, a fear that you don't want to say a bracha levatala, you don't want to waste a blessing. But we do want to, what if we do need the blessing? What if it really should be a second day? So the tradition developed as it starts in the Talmud, that you should eat a new fruit, a fruit that you have not eaten in at least 1 year. Oftentimes a pomegranate, if that's not a fruit you eat regularly, has become kind of synonymous with the fruit. Although I know at my Seder, we've sometimes gotten a star fruit or some other fruit that we've never, sometimes it's a good opportunity to try a fruit we've never had before. I went to Miles Market, I think last year to seek out what kinds of fruits they had, a loquat and a dragon fruit and things like that. Is a good opportunity to say Shehecheyanu on the second night of Rosh Hashanah.
Throughout the year, I remember always when we eat watermelon this summer, we would say the Shehecheyanu, or whenever we eat something new.
Yeah, traditionally, if you're doing something for the first time in the season, you say Shehecheyanu. Right. It's harder to do that now, but right. The first time you do something ever, or if it's the first time in a season, that's why, we celebrate Hanukkah each year. We still say Shehecheyanu the first night of Hanukkah because it's the first time in this season, this year that we've done it. The same on Rosh Hashanah. We celebrate Rosh Hashanah every year, but it's the first time this season that we're coming to Rosh Hashanah. So we'll take a look quickly here at some of the different foods. I'll jump over. This is the tour. This is also Middle Ages is kind of sharing Rashi, looking at the various fruits and foods, and showing how it's kind of moved from just looking at these items to also connecting with the names of the items. And here the tour, who's in Germany, shares what some of the customs are here. We're in the 1400s. What the customs are. So he says in Germany already in the 1400s, the custom is to eat a sweet apple with honey. And we say, let this be a sweet new year for us. And as Tybal correctly said, it's not a blessing. We do say a blessing on eating the apple, but we don't have a blessing on this year, on the year with the apples and honey, because it's not a commandment. We're not God. There's no commandment to eat the apples and honey. It's a tradition, propitious omen, a good luck charm, if you will. And so we say Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha is the formulation, which means may it be your will before us, that it be a sweet new year, that this apples and honey be sweet like our new year.
We have the round challah and sweet challah.
Right, again, right. We have the round challah and often with raisins or sweet for the same reason. Provence here, southern France, they are accustomed to bring all types of novelties to the meal and to eat a sheep's head. We think I said my aunt ran away with the fish head, but imagine having a sheep head or the ram's head.
Too much.
The eyes are supposed to be very.
And the eyes looking out at you, and just a small. I don't know if anyone here.
I'm leaving the room.
I don't know if anyone here had a sheep's head, but I know the tradition in India was to have the sheep head
on the table.
Yeah, Leah. She actually mentioned my wife's aunt. Leah Spector said they don't do it, but her family is from Yemen, and that was something they did. I also can share a few years ago, there's a rabbinic listserv among the rabbis in the conservative movement as part of the rabbinical assembly. And one rabbi asked a few years ago on behalf of a congregant who had moved from India. They were in the New York area asking where they might be able to buy a sheep head for their Rosh Hashanah table. I kid you not. So it still is tradition. And there actually was an answer given. There was apparently some butcher in New Jersey, kosher butcher, that knew of this custom, and they did prepare sheep heads for those who wanted. So I'm not saying you should do this for Rosh Hashanah. You can if you want, but it still is practiced in certain places.
This will be
the head of the sheep, right in the middle of the table.
I know, growing up, tongue. Rose tongue was a big deal here from.
Yeah, people ate.
Just in general. Yeah, not for Rosh, maybe it wasn't Rosh Hashanah, but in general, tongue was seen as a delicacy, in
Maybe,
parts of Europe, yeah.
To remind you not to have Lashon Hara.
Maybe, okay, good. Maybe we eat the tongue to remind us not to speak Lashon Hara.
I don't, it wasn't.
But here, if you can see, right, eating the lung because it is light, and our teacher, Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg, was accustomed to eat the head of a ram to commemorate the ram of Yitzchak. So all sorts of different, once the idea comes about that it's good to have different signs for the new year, all sorts of traditions develop.
But it's like, it makes you think, how did they even get it back then? Like, what, they went hunting? Like, well, but-
Presumably, right, I don't know, but presumably someone would have gone hunting and shechted off the head of the sheep.
Oh, it's
They
like-
probably raised them. You know, like the thing.
Or maybe they raised it, I don't know, slugging kaparas, they have the chickens, yeah, maybe. Yeah, Helena.
I have a question. Why eat re'ah?
What?
Why eat the re'ah? So it says because it is light. I believe here it's light, that the new year should be light, that it shouldn't be a burden.
Okay.
Shehi kala. Hare'ah lafi shehi kala. I don't know if there's any other understandings. Do anyone have any ideas here?
That I've never.
It's not something that I've ever eaten or seen in modern day time.
Yeah, my mother, when she made the kosher, the chicken, she used to remove the re'ah and throw it away.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know. Ruth, you're shaking your head. You're not sure either. I'm not sure. Well, I'll need to look into it.
Next
No.
class will be preparing re'ot.
Right, yeah. It reminds me, kebab Yerushalmi. They have me'orav Yerushalmi.
Not re'ot, they have.
I don't know.
burgers And hard.
I never ate. I refuse to eat it, but
No, they don't have re'ot on Yerushalmi, Moav.
oh, they don't have it. Okay.
No, but they have chicken hearts.
For those who are not familiar, in
They-
Israel, it's a common, they have like shish kebab and you'll have different things. So one of the shish kebab possibilities that you can order is me'orav Yerushalmi, which means mixed Jerusalem grill.
But it's different chicken organs. It's
They take
heart.
organs that I did not look appealing or appetizing.
Don't sell them anymore.
My mother didn't throw away
No, we used to eat it.
organ.
So we used to eat the liver and we used to eat the heart of the chicken.
Yes, that's what they put in this
Yeah.
me'orav.
That's what the me'orav Yerushalmi is, all the parts that in America we throw out. But I guess it's showing where I'm from and what.
Question cooking show, Michael Simon brought the hearts, because he's Greek.
So they bring the hearts
He
and,
brought the hearts as one of his synopsis,
yeah.
one of his
And the
ingredients.
pipiklach
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the pipiklach is the delicatessen that we used to make.
Yeah, no, but every part, right. There's only one part of the animal, of a kosher animal that's slaughtered properly. There's only one part of the animal that's not kosher. And that we learn actually in the story of Yaakov fighting with the angel, that the Gid Hanashet, because this is the part of where the angel grabbed Yaakov, he grabbed him in this part of the body. That part is not kosher, as not something that we should ever eat. Also blood, I should say blood also is not something that we eat. But in terms of organs, parts of the body, the Gid Hanashet usually is translated as the sinew, the back, hind sinew, I think. But simply just a part that we don't, part of the hindquarters that is off limits to Jews according to the Torah.
So
There
it's
yeah,
only in
Taibo?
beef.
Oh.
It's only in
is
beef,
one
not in
Gid
chicken.
in the goggle of the chicken that my mother used to remove and said this is not kosher.
Okay. Okay, yeah, Ruth?
No, I said the Gid Hanashe is only in beef.
In
not
beef, in beef.
chicken.
Not in
Not
chicken.
in
There may be a
chicken.
part of the chicken.
Yeah.
I need to look, yeah.
I don't think they.
Yeah,
That'll be the pulke and then we eat it.
maybe. And Taibo, yeah.
This is a little further back, but not all the wordplay is Hebrew. Some of it is Yiddish, like the one that I quickly found because I don't know Yiddish that well. Chicken liver, because the Yiddish word for liver is supposed to be leberlach, which I've probably mispronounced, which
No, lebelach, yeah.
which if said slightly differently is leb ehrlich, which means live honestly.
Mhm.
Right,
But
so
labor
we'll,
lach is in multiple, more than one is labor lach.
Yeah.
Select.
yeah, let's select, right. So we'll see, and we'll look right now at some of the items that make the Ashkenazi, traditional Ashkenazi machzor and the traditional Sephardi machzor. But what you're saying, and to remember, unlike certain Jewish traditions, we believe in this, that Judaism is always moving. In fact, that's a big part of when we talk about the conservative movement, and one of the ideology is this concept of tradition and change, that we have tradition, but it's not in a box. It's not stagnant. It can continue on. And that's been the truth with these kind of omens. It's not stagnant. It doesn't need to remain just what's here, but there are more that have been developed and can be developed. And if you have something that you see as a good omen for you and find that connection, I encourage all of you to bring and to teach us, what omens we can bring. And we see that in other areas of Jewish life as well. You may know on the Passover Seder plate, the tradition to bring an orange on the Seder plate, which is
Kos Miriam.
Kos Miriam on the Seder table, are examples of modern traditions that have developed for various reasons and are not universally adopted, but there can still be new meaning. It doesn't need to be set in stone, the way we receive it. Yeah, Tybal.
You're too young, but you may know this anyway because you're a rabbi. During the time of the Soviet Jewry struggle, there was the custom to do a fourth matzah for the Soviet Jews.
Yes, I'm familiar. I've heard. Yes, I'm familiar.
Actually, I said that I just remembered in the first years after the Shoah, I have some historic Haggadot that suggest a matzah for those murdered in the Shoah, but that custom didn't catch on. It was just a little while after 1945, and then it seemed to have ended.
Okay, and I'll share this as an aside, but on the Passover Seder during the Civil War, there are stories of soldiers celebrating Pesach and didn't have the ability to make charoset, but actually took an actual brick, a physical brick, and just put the brick on the Seder plate as their symbolism for the building that the Egyptians tasked and forced the Israelite slaves to build. So here we're looking at the machzor, Rosh Hashanah. This is an Ashkenazi, the traditional Ashkenazi machzor, which talks about performing several symbolic rituals. Dipping a portion of challah in honey is part of the ritual. We have this formulation, Yehi Ratzon. Sorry, I realize it came out backwards when it went in there, so the Hebrew is backwards. But Yehi Ratzon milfanecha shetechadesh aleinu shana tova umetuka, that we should be renewed with a good and sweet New Year. Did they all do that?
No, the printout is fine. It's only the one there.
Oh, for some reason, when I printed it, it worked well. For some reason, when I opened it on the computer, it's backwards somehow.
I was thinking, what are you talking about? It's fine in the paper.
No.
It's
No,
printed.
Well, that one is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
printed twice.
Some of it is. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but
You forgot. It's fine.
yeah, Ruth.
It's fine.
Do it. We dip the challah in honey and we say that verse.
You dip the challah in honey. So good. So that's from the traditional Ashkenazi machzor.
Yeah.
And the same, we have the blessing here for the apple and honey, and that same prayer. It is also the custom to eat a piece of the head of some animal, preferably a sheep, it actually says, coming from the Ashkenazi tradition. And there we say, Yehi Rosh velo lezanav, or really just Yehi Rosh, actually, may it be your will that we be at the head. And then it mentions that we eat certain vegetables based on the names which connote good fortune. And here it doesn't say all of them, but it mentions carrots, which is interesting.
Instead.
We talk about gezer, that may be a good decree, but here it talks about the Yiddish in the Ashkenazi, that it's merin, which means increase, that our merits should increase.
That's what Ruth said. You should.
Yeah, Ruth. So Ruth was,
Yes.
so maybe we need to slice it like coins, that our merits increase.
So what would be a good replacement for the head in our days if we don't want to have a head?
If you don't want to have a head, well, the good news is that there are so many things here that I think you're okay.
How about cauliflower?
Oh, we want
The head of the cauliflower.
How about garlic? A head of garlic.
A head of garlic? Okay, a head of garlic.
No, you're not.
You have the head filleted so that you don't actually see the head. Maybe we would have been okay at my family Rosh Hashanah meal.
Tail.
But really in the Sephardi community developed this whole tradition, really a whole Seder, a whole order of things that you do before you start the meal. And the custom of apples and honey makes its way into the Sephardi Haggadah here as part of the ritual that comes from the Ashkenazi world, but also, and then the head of the fish or a sheep, that we should be as a head and not a tail. But then all sorts of other foods kind of make their way in over time. Dates, as you mentioned, and we can look here. Let me look at the Hebrew also. Sorry, I don't want to go, but it.
A little bit more.
Be'achilat hatmarim. Yehi ratzon milifnei avinu shabashamayim sheyitamu sonenu ve'oivenu. Yitamu, the word tamar is like the word yitamu. The word for dates in Hebrew, tamar, is similar to the word yitamu, which means destroy. It comes to kind of destroy our enemies and those who hate us. Eating the rimon, the pomegranate. May it be or will our God and God of our ancestors that our merits increase as the seeds of the pomegranate. So the number of seeds in the pomegranate is kind of what we're blessing on, what we're asking God for. When eating rubia, and I put the word rubia here, because rubia can mean a number of different things, but rubia is connected to the Hebrew word harbet, lerabot, to increase. So that word it's kind of a play upon the word. Yehi ratzon milifnei avinu shabashamayim sheyirbu zechuyotenu, from rubia. In the tradition that I celebrate, we use black-eyed peas as rubia, but I guess chilbeh, there could be other things.
Well, Greek, that's what it is. Greek is chilbeh.
As the chilbeh, right? And rubia, and some places it's written lubia instead of rubia as well.
Because in Hebrew it's called lubia.
Lubia.
It's the beans.
The bean, okay, lubia, right. And some of these words actually are Hebrew, some are Aramaic. All right, when eating leek or cabbage, the same thing. The word in Hebrew, karte, for leek or cabbage. Sheyikartu sonenu, that you should cut off our enemies, because the word for cabbage is the same as to cut off. And eating a gourd. Oh, sorry, I jumped one. Sorry, that's the gourd. Karte is. I jumped. Sorry. Karte is the cabbage. Kara is the gourd. And kra is the same as kara, to calling out, right? So may it be that when we eat the gourd, that the decree of our sentence be torn asunder, and may our merits be proclaimed up before you. Right, from the word kara, vayikaru lefanecha zechuyotenu. And beets, selek, which I know Zahava you mentioned, selek sheyistalku, to remove. It's from lesalek, the same root in beets as to remove. May our adversaries be removed. And eating fish, aside from the head of the fish, it still is custom to eat fish at your Rosh Hashanah table, that we should be fruitful and multiply like fish. So all sorts of different foods that we may eat. And I encourage, if you can bring these into your Rosh Hashanah meal, these are all deeply ingrained in our tradition as Rosh Hashanah foods. And I know there are others. We talked about raisins as being sweet. So raisin in sweet kugel, in challah. Any item that's sweet can be added to this for a sweet new year.
Also, I think it's an interesting note that it says what's not to do too. Not to eat sour, not to have
right. So you're getting to this final source, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is written in the this is already by the late 1800s. I don't always love the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, because it's basically, it's a rabbi that's kind of saying this is what you do. And he kind of it's good in that if you want to see kind of what the tradition, like what the observant tradition is, it's a good source. But I wouldn't always say you should always use it and follow it as if it's a Bible, the way the person wrote it to be. But he kind of wrote it to be like without explanation, but just this is what we do. And so this is by the late 1800s, and this is more or less kind of the traditional formulation of how Rosh Hashanah is observed. But here he writes, at the evening meal, it is customary to prepare symbolic dishes as auspicious omens for a good year. You dip the piece of challah of hamotzi in honey, and after eating a kazais, the amount of an olive of challah. I'm going to jump over. He talks about, there's various rulings as to how much challah you should eat, but basically it goes on and talks about the various things you should eat that we just read. But it does also say, right, you should also eat vegetables, the names of which in the language of your country allude to good things. And this I know is what Tybal mentioned, even having peas for a peaceful year, is an example here that comes into the tradition itself that we can add. The tradition itself is that we should add things that help us bring for ourselves a good and peaceful year. Yeah, Tybal. Yeah, so
good.
The student of mine who thought of that, because the example I gave, I just looked, I had a picture of a souffle and I said, our year should stay up the way a good, some wording like that. But the student did peas with the herb thyme on it because she wanted to see peace in our time.
right. Okay, good. So they created a dish which is perfect and is actually, it's both new but also traditional, as we see here. To bring in your own traditions. But it also develops over time. There are certain things we should avoid on Rosh Hashanah as well. You should certainly avoid any semblance of anger during these days. You should be of good cheer and have full confidence in the Almighty's acceptance of your repentance and good deeds, such as in our country, right? Carrots, marin, meaning to increase. And it talks about various symbols that people have, elaborate fish course. But it should not be cooked in vinegar because we must not eat sour or bitter foods on Rosh Hashanah. So we want to keep sweet, but we want to avoid bitterness. And then there's even more traditions that develop that I don't have the original sources, but it's compiled here in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We avoid eating nuts,
Yeah, what?
egos.
Why?
Why?
do we-
Because Helena?
Yeah, why do we avoid to eat nuts?
Yeah, never.
Because here the gematria, numerical value of the word egos equals 17, which is the same as the word chet, sin.
Oh,
So we don't eat egozim because egos equals 17, like chet equals 17.
but we can eat egozim and it's more.
As long as you eat multiple nuts and not just one, you're okay according to Zahav.
Just from a kosher candy place and there's nuts. There's nuts.
It doesn't mean you need to. This is super. To some degree, this.
So all, it's only,
It says no, it says no.
So I want to.
we're eating it, don't worry. I put nuts on my honey cake.
So wait, before we take this as the gospel, I don't want to use mixed references, but before we say all of these are actually custom and are auspicious. It's all in the realm of
Interpretation.
Yes.
well, interpretation, but it's not in the realm of command, of mitzvah.
Oh,
They're all, even the apples and honey. We're not commanded to eat apples and honey, although we kind of see it as a ubiquitous sign of Rosh Hashanah. And how could you have Rosh Hashanah without eating apples and honey? There's nowhere in the Torah that says you shall eat apples and honey on Rosh Hashanah. All of it comes from this idea that we want to show, right, to elevate our year through these signs.
make an apple dessert without nuts.
So don't feel like you need to follow this. Here it mentions that,
Make the ruling, you can have nuts.
right, he even writes, it's customary, right? All this is customary. He mentions that the Vilna Gaon, a great rabbi in Vilna, did not eat grapes. So I'm not exactly sure, are grapes the same as egos? Because the reasoning here is I'm not sure why he didn't eat grapes when he's talking about nuts. But right,
Maybe he was diabetic.
maybe. So you don't need to follow that, and plenty of desserts I know do have nuts, and maybe we'll follow Zahava that you can't eat one nut, singular. But if you have multiple, then you're fine. And then finally, some of the custom of studying from the Mishnah, Masechet Rosh Hashanah. But the end message is not about the nuts per se in particular, but the notion that there are so many customs that have developed, and these are some of the most notable that we just looked at. But part of the tradition and kind of the last message is that it is both, it can both be new and traditional to create your own traditions for Rosh Hashanah as auspicious signs for the new year. Certainly feel free, and I have the source sheet if you want on Zoom. I can email it to you or have at the synagogue to pick up if anyone wants. If you want to see if you want to take record of what many of these traditions are. But I also want to encourage you as you think about Rosh Hashanah, how can you make the tradition your own for yourself, for your family, for our community? I'd love for you to share with us things that we might be able to do. All of these things developed over time because some community, some person decided, oh, Selek beets. That reminds me, Selek, that we should remove all of the enemies, all of our adversaries from us.
And also some of them, like I know the apple because that's probably what was grown in Europe, but it wasn't, and dates probably from different.
Right, the apples and honey because they had apples in Germany. The dates because that's what they had in Iraq or wherever it developed. And so now that we have the ability to have both, it's great to bring them all together. But all of these are traditions that don't come from the Torah. They don't even, some are in the Talmud, but most are actually following the Talmud. It seems evident to me that different communities found their own signs, their own symbols, and some stuck, some may not, some maybe not. But there's an opportunity for us both to use what our tradition has passed down to us, but also to think about how we can enrich our tradition through our own ideas and our own sense of what can bring about a beautiful new year for all of us. Tybal?
So for those who don't know, I'm in Maryland, but I'm near DC. But I found something from a Baltimore rabbi when I was looking at this, who eats lettuce, a raisin, and celery. And he says, let us have a raise in salary. For those of us who are not retired.
Yeah. Now, it's a very nice, good, and an example that this continues to this day. And with that, I just want to say, I wish everyone a Shana Tova, coming sooner than we realize, I think. But I'll just mention a number of the upcoming sessions here that we have at B'nai Yeshurun to prepare for the holiday. This coming Tuesday, actually, it's not on a Thursday, but this coming Tuesday, Cantor Rosenbaum is teaching. I need to look up someone has in front of them. I need to look up what the titles are here. August 29th, the ABCs of Communal Confession. And then next Thursday, right here or on Zoom, Rabbi Rudin Luria, Jonah, answering the call to transform. And then we have a number of sessions that are in person only. September 7th, a Rosh Hashanah cooking demonstration that's here at the synagogue at 6:30, and come and prepare. We have two personal chefs that are members of the congregation, Eileen and David Brown.
That will have, I think, a fee, and there'll be.
That program does have a fee, and you prepare a meal for dinner as part of it. So please, for that, please register ahead.
Not yet.
When is that one? When is that one?
That's September 7th. The programs next week, Tuesday and Thursday, are hybrid, both here in the building and via Zoom. September 7th is in person only, and as well, there's a program on mikvah and the Yamim Noraim with Rabbi Alex Rosenbaum, and as kind of part of the beginning of our wellness center as well, which should be a great program. That's also only in person on September 11th and 12th, Monday and Tuesday, a learning session on the Monday evening, and then a time to sign up for your own personal time at the mikvah on the Tuesday to prepare for the high holidays. That's at the mikvah on Mayfield Road next to, I guess, what was formerly Park Synagogue. I'm not, right now the building is historic. I'm not exactly sure where the building stands now, but the mikvah, the Goldberg mikvah is there, the Charlotte Goldberg mikvah. There will be hybrid sessions starting after the Chagim each Thursday night. In fact, Rabbi Alex Rosenbaum is going to be leading the first October-November series as our Spotlight Educator in October-November, and there will be more information about upcoming Spotlight Educators on Thursday evenings throughout the year in the coming weeks. But good, Shana Tova, and great to spend the evening with all of you.
Good night.
Yehi Ratzon
Shia Tova.
But
Hi, Melina.
Thank you.
Take care to everyone on Zoom. And
Rabbi Foster, I just want to tell you, it's the fishes.
yeah,
7 fishes is a big deal with Italians.
Yeah.
You know.
the 7 fish, yeah.
Russians on New
It
Year's.
was the 7 fish for New Year's, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So,
then.
Yeah, there's fish, I think, has it's resonant with a lot of different cultures, the idea of the fish as the head in the new year. Good.
Fish is a.
All right, take care. I'm gonna log off. Take care, everyone.